introduce Saphir, and I'm going to share a few things about Saphir. We know about all these stories like Amjad coming from outside of Silicon Valley and starting a company like Replit. Saphir is actually born and raised right there in Silicon Valley, right next to Cupertino, so near Apple, huh?
Yeah.
Mashallah, his father is a pioneer both in the tech startup space as well as the Muslim community. And he's had amazing children, mashallah, Saphir being one of them. He's raised them to be fearless. So although he went to UC Irvine and started working for Amazon after graduation, he was able to make sure those golden handcuffs never got too tight around you. He left Amazon after 7 years.
Yeah.
Started pursuing your own startup journey. And if you can, I'm going to pass the mic to you there. Tell us about what that startup journey was like for you and where it's led you today.
Yeah, so I started my career working for Amazon Web Services, which is kind of like the biggest cloud infrastructure company. And I worked there for 7 years and started to see some challenges with customers being able to build using some of these tools, because Amazon is notorious for having about 200 different services to be able to use, from like storage to compute or whatever. And we saw some challenges there, and then we started our first company called Tiny Stacks, kind of in that space. This was before LLMs and kind of made it easy for people to be able to build infrastructure very quickly using templates.
Were you also using like machine learning or something?
We weren't necessarily using machine learning, but we had a lot of expertise building some of this in-house at AWS of how teams use it internally. And our customers would constantly ask us for like how to build using some of these tools and get expertise in that direction. So we ran that company for a couple of years, but iterated a few times, didn't find success. And then right when like LLMs were starting to get around, maybe the first like version of ChatGPT, we decided to close down that company and start another company called Guardrails, which was building guardrails for LLM applications. So that's kind of in our name. We were kind of the first ones in the space to start that this is such like a new technology, but how do you kind of protect it and build like security and stuff around it?
What's an example of how a customer of yours, for example, how are they using guardrails to protect around LLM?
I think when most people think about guardrails, they think about like malicious intent, like jailbreaking or like toxicity or something like that. In reality, like 99% of the customers that we interact with, their problems are more associated with the business needs itself, right? So like we have actually a lot of financial institutions that use us. So if a US financial institution gives financial advice, that would be a violation of the law. So they cannot do that, right? So it's very custom to their business that they cannot give financial advice, right? Those same rules might not apply to like an Australian company or something like that. But the reality is most of the risks associated with like an AI application is closely tied to the business use case of the application, not necessarily like nefarious aspects.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, I've seen these stories where in airlines companies, LLM promised someone a really low fare on a flight or something. Now they're kind of stuck having to honor what their AI said. Is it like that?
Yeah. I think there was a famous like Chevy dealership or whatever that sold a car for like $1,000 or something, and they had to honor it and stuff like that, right? So these are very real things that like the last mile of building an AI application, this like 10%, it's very easy to build a 90%, right? Like you go to like Replit or Lovable and build this application, but this last 10% is very, very difficult.
I like that. I've never heard it phrased that way, but the last mile delivery of the AI, that's great.
Yeah.
And so you started this a few years ago, right at the start as like ChatGPT is coming about. I'm guessing it's taken off probably, right? Because people really need these guardrails. What's the journey, the company growth been like for you guys?
So our first product is an open source product. It's called Guardrails, that provides that you can take any LLM application and build guardrails around it. So we have like, it's completely open source. So we have about 70 different, what we call validators, that can check on like toxic language, hallucination. One of our most popular validators is competitor check. So you as a business don't want to be necessarily like mentioning your competitors if someone's like asking you a question. So that's actually one of our most popular validators. Would not expect that in the get-go. So that's widely used by like thousands of companies worldwide, especially in financial institutions. But the main like challenge that we saw from companies was that AI is kind of like a black box, right? Like you don't really understand how it works, where it's getting like its data from to be able to give you this message, and it's very hard for people to assess the risk associated. Like what is my actual risk of like an AI application? Like if I'm building a chatbot for a financial institution or something like that, what am I most susceptible to, right? And again, it's like not the typical malicious stuff, but what's related to my application. So we would get a lot of questions like, okay, we love guardrails, we want to use guardrails. I don't know what guardrails do I need in the first place. And that's a much harder problem to solve because it's like, it's very business and application centric. So we built something called Snow Globe, which basically does simulation testing. Like we take your application and we start building personas of like what the type of user that would actually use this application. And then we start to build test cases and interact with the AI application and see how it performs. And then you can judge some of the behavior of the AI application. So you can judge on hallucination or any type of evaluation aspect that you can do. So that really, I think it's still early in the market just because people are still vibe coding their application, but it really allows people to get qualitative and quantitative of like where there's actually risk associated with your application. Because there's a lot of like executives that might feel like they're scared, they're fearful about like AI and not know what it can do, what it can't do. And this kind of helps with that aspect.
Now, guardrails isn't the only thing you're working on. Of course, I think you joined Nia and you also have Souk. So can you tell us a little about your other ventures?
Yeah. So my journey to Michigan starts in 2014 where I started buying investment properties in Warren. And started buying individual homes, and then my friends and family wanted to invest with us, so we started our first fund. That was in 2016. And then we had about 4 funds. We had about 100 homes in Warren and Roseville. We exited those funds, the life cycle ended, and then we started NIA, which is a mortgage alternative. So homeowner puts 20%, we put 80%, and we participate in all the major expenses. We're a partner with them, and they pay us rent, but they can also buy additional equity in the home. So we have about 15 million currently right now. We have almost 50 homes. We have about 3 in Michigan, but we're spread across about 16 different states. So that's NIA. Alhamdulillah, we're growing about $2 or $3 million a quarter. So we, inshallah, hope to get to about 100 homes by the end of the year. So it's really, like in order to tackle the financial system, you have to build it from the ground up, right? And
does AI play into that company?
Oh yeah. So I think the brother was asking about finance, right? So like one of the things is we have 3,000 people on our wait list for NIA. So one of the decisions that we have to make is who do we prioritize from this wait list? So we prioritize people that need less than 400,000 from us and are in a target market for us. How we define a target market is we look at inventory levels across the country, and that's often the precursor for where kind of house prices are headed. It's just simple supply and demand. Less supply, more demand, house prices go up. And so the Northeast, Michigan, Chicago, all these markets are growing rapidly because they don't have that much inventory. So I uploaded our wait list like a few weeks ago to Claude, and I said, help me prioritize this wait list. Here are some of the states that I want to buy, and this is the criteria, and help me prioritize this. It made like a scoring criteria on its own, and then I started like going back and forth, and then I gave it to my assistant, and I said, now you go use this Claude app that I've set up with you, and go find me like the 10 next people that we should go and give the green light to go get funding, right? So I think that AI has been an incredible like uplifter to non-technical people because I used to code as well, but I haven't coded for like 5 years, but now I'm coding on like Replit and all these other tools because it's just been so democratized basically, right? And I personally think that there is more opportunity for using AI for quote unquote non-technical businesses because the bar is so low there and there's so much opportunity that you can kind of benefit from.
And then you have Souk is it souk.com?
Souk Capital.
Souk Capital. Yeah.
Yeah.
Souk.com is the Middle East marketplace, but yeah,
Yeah.
Souk Capital.
Yeah, so we started Souk at the beginning of last year, and many small businesses, they need something called working capital. Like if I'm buying clothes, I need to make an order from China, get it, and it takes a few months. Then I have to sell those products, and then the whole process takes 3 to 6 months. And if you're growing, it becomes very, very difficult to do. Even if you're making money, it's always hard to kind of pre-end that capital that you have to give. So that's how we started. We started funding a few small companies, and then now today we have about 17 or 18 companies that we've funded. So it works via a gross profit sharing agreement. We help fund inventory or services, and in exchange, whenever they get paid by their customers, we take a portion of the gross profits. So it's also a debt-free way to help some of these businesses. And we have plenty of Muslim businesses. It's amazing. We've funded everything from like Veiled, if you know, that's a hijab company, to we funded a livestock company in Dallas who needs capital for buying cows and then slaughtering them and selling them to grocery stores. We funded a private equity company that provides cleaning services in Chicago. We actually helped them buy 2 other companies by ramping up their working capital. So it's amazing to see how many Muslim businesses that there are. There's so much talent, but a lot of them have been restricted because they've had no source of working capital to grow. So it's been, alhamdulillah, amazing to see.
Alhamdulillah. You got a sense of the questions here. I want to see, is there a question? Well, actually, first, before we go to that, with Souk, does AI play a role in Souk?
Similarly, we build like a scoring criteria for how to evaluate a company, right? So we look at someone's P&L, we look at their balance sheet. So we very much have started to play a role in that. And also, we haven't done this yet, but one of the criteria for us is how fast someone sells their inventory. So the faster that they sell, let's say they sell every 3 months, then our capital can basically roll over 4 times within the year. So we have to look at their Shopify data, but they might also have to look at how do they do sales on Amazon and some of these other sources. So we can eventually build some AI capabilities to like understand the reporting of some of this stuff and kind of get a better feel for how quickly some of these companies are able to deploy capital.
The questions, you got to hear them already. It's a big mix. You know, some people are thinking starting AI companies, some people are saying how to get back in, talking about personal LLMs, distribution, etc. Did any of those catch your eye you want to kick off with?
I think the first thing to maybe touch upon is like AI at the end of the day is like a tool, right? It looks like a very fearful tool sometimes because of like how powerful it is. But at the end of the day, it's like in the ballpark and category of like the internet, for example, right? Which started off as like a DARPA military project, and then it was like general usage. I think one of the biggest challenges that I see sometimes of like entrepreneurs, whether it's like a tech company or small businesses, is that sometimes like people are chasing the next technology without understanding like where their place is in society. And what I mean by that is like everybody is on this earth for a specific reason. I don't know everybody's reason, but like Allah put you here for a specific reason. You have certain skills, you have a family, where you're born, everything like that is for a specific reason. And I think it's about like finding that journey and those skills that you have and seeing what the opportunity is. And you might not always know what that opportunity is, but like you have to kind of take every shot that you've been granted in order to do so. It's like that example of like the houses example that I gave. Like without me buying an individual house in Warren and like starting to get interested in real estate, I would have never had the capability to start something like Nia. Nor did I even know that opportunity existed. But it's just about like climbing that ladder one step at a time, and then wherever there are opportunities, they will be given to you. Sometimes when we see like this new technology, we're like, I want to go build an AI company, right? Which is good, like apply AI to wherever that you are, but like realize that you have certain skills right? And how to leverage those skills and then add AI and add other people kind of in the mix to kind of build your company from there. I think like if you're able to do that, then you will be much more successful than trying to like chase someone else's success or story or whatever.
The one of the things we see now is people can just like that launch an app. I mean, it's amazing. Replit, we talk about Replit. If those don't know, it's a Muslim-founded company. You can just publish straight to the App Store, right? And so this Ramadan was cool. Did you see that in this Ramadan? Like
so many zakat calculators,
Quran apps. Like it was really cool. And I'm just thinking, but how do any of them build actually a sustainable business? Because now it's a dime a dozen distribution. How do you get the word out if everyone is doing it? Like how do you stand out from that noise? Any thoughts on that?
It's really hard. I think the problem was apparent before too, where people thought that the building was hard, so they would spend a lot of time building something, and then it's the famous thing that like people are always too late to launch, right? It's a very common thing, but now it's like taken to like a whole another level where you can just build something overnight and then you launch it. So there's a lot of like, they call it like AI slop, right? Where you're just building slop, like a bunch of stuff. I think I was telling you earlier, there's like this table, like matrix that I found of like, if you have a specific like knowledge in an industry and you use AI, you're like the best of the best. And then if you use AI and you don't have necessarily the topmost knowledge, then you can go wrong very quickly. Like you can be pointed to a different direction by AI. And if you don't have skills in AI or like your general thing, then you're really like off the rails. And if you have skills but you don't use AI, you're kind of like surviving and kind of getting by. So the LLMs are honestly very like dumb technology. We're just like, it's like there's like a famous saying like any technology is indistinguishable from magic, right? It's like the LLMs are actually very dumb. They are trained on this like wide corpus of data, Wikipedia and all common stuff, and they spit out whatever is the most like common words that you see. So it's very easy to like if you don't know what you're doing, like if you're a financial analyst and you ask like Claude to like analyze something, it's very easy to get it wrong actually, because it doesn't have all the details. So I think there was a question of like, how do you iterate with these things? You have to interact with these LMs like one problem at a time. So you still have to do the problem solving, or you can ask Claude to kind of help you break down those problems. But then the way that you actually build is you have to take one problem, solve it, then you go to the next problem, then you solve it, and then you kind of bring all those pieces together. The LLMs are very, very bad at if you were to give like a very wide problem and then kind of being able to tackle it.
Kind of like to the brother's point here is he's asking at what point, will there be a point where in a company you can trust the AI fully in an area? And if so, how far away is that point?
Yeah, so like if you look at the AI industry, I know like Ibrahim is here where like you're doing like traditional ML classification, where traditional ML was like you would take like a raw data
ML
source,
machine learning.
Machine learning. You would take like a raw data source or a list, and then you would need like very high quality data, and then you would train a machine learning model specifically for that. So it was like if I'm like measuring something, I'm building like a measuring model specifically for that. And then what happened with LLMs is like it kind of swung the whole door open, where it's like trained on this general corpus, and then it can ask anything. But it's also like you can ask anything, but it's also good at nothing, basically, right?
Yeah.
So now we're in this mode of like, now people are kind of like fine-tuning was kind of even like an old thing, but now they're kind of training the LLM with specific data, like specializing it on top in order to go to a very, very specific aspect. And that will honestly take a long time. There are some companies.
I mean, long time is such a difficult word in the age of AI, because I'm not sure if you mean like 20 years or 2 years.
So there's some companies, like financial institutions, that already have AI agents in production without human in the loop. There are very few, but there are some.
Already.
There are already some. I would say that there are very, very few. I would say within a couple of years you will start to see more, but it's very hard. It's like that last mile that we kind of talked about is like getting that level of testing and accuracy and the data aspect of things. And so what you will end up seeing is like you're not going to see like special models, but you will see very specific purpose-built like LLM applications for tackling a specific issue. That's the only way to kind of get the rigor and the reliability.
What's an example of that?
So for example, like let's say you're building a chat bot for like a bank, okay? And you can ask the bank of like, how can I transfer from this person to another person, whatever like that. You have to keep in mind that the LLM has been trained on a corpus of public data. So it might have data from like X bank or something like that. So now you give it your own data to do so. But then also it might still prioritize the other data versus your data, right? And then on top of that, like people are, there's this concept of like a system prompt, right? That kind of asks the LLM a question. So now people are changing the system prompt, and now your answer might be different than what you previously used with your system prompt, basically, right? So you have to get to this level of confidence that your AI application will be able to reliably answer the question. And so that's why I think it's very unlikely to see like a large number of external AI applications being successful. There will be some chatbots, but the vast majority of success in AI like adoption will be internal applications like coding agents or like tools like for financial analysts and stuff like that, because naturally there's like a human in the loop in that process, and it doesn't have to be perfect.
So what I'm hearing is, I know Michigan, a lot of people, as we saw the hands raised, most people work for somebody else. And it may not be like the Bay Area, everyone's got like their own startup, right? So I'm sure people are even afraid, like, hey, I work at Ford or GM. Should I be worried AI is going to take my job? What I'm hearing is less being worried that AI is going to take your job, but more figure out how to use AI as a tool to do your job better. And if you don't, then someone who does know how to do that might take your job. Is that it?
Yeah. There's like in the Valley, there's like a famous thing of if you're a software engineer, the number of, they call it the metric is like number of tokens. I'm sure you saw this on Twitter too, right? Like the number of tokens that you use with like an LM. So if you're a software engineer, you need to be consuming at least 1x or 50% to 1x of your salary. Meaning like you need to be leveraging AI to that level extent to be producing more output.
So if you're an engineer making $300,000, you should be spending $300,000 a year on AI.
On LLMs, wow. Yeah. And now in some of the companies like Meta and stuff like that, they have a leaderboard of how many tokens that engineers are basically being used, right? So it's a very like crude and rudimentary way to look at things and like whatever in like speed of progress, right? But the reality is like the people who are, and like, I don't think you need to learn anything fancy. Just start using ChatGPT or whatever, of however that you can. Like ask it questions for things that you already know, and then you'll know of like actually that it's not very good at this particular thing. But if you give it the right amount of information, it can kind of adopt.
If you're so clueless, like of where to start, could you just even ask it, "Hey, I don't know how to leverage you. Can you help me figure it out?" Like, can you ask it that?
Yeah. You can ask it like the most basic questions, like whether it's like your health or like anything. Or I'm just like, I'm a very curious person, so I like to like read Wikipedia or whatever, or if I'm interested in something. So like, I don't know, go ask it the history of Detroit, of like of what happened over the transformation of the city and how it happened. And it's very good at like sourcing and combining information for you versus traditionally, you would have to go through all these sources, read the information, and so on, right? That's where we will see like a lot more adoption than like, eventually taking over like someone's like a medical job or something like that. It's going to be a lot more of this software, traditional IT, which is why I say they're actually at the most risk, and the people who have businesses and non-technical roles, they have the most opportunity to leverage AI because they have specialized skills that the average person might not have.
How does I like one of the questions like there, and we talked about too. There's so much out there. I mean, every day it's amazing the new stuff coming out at the big level, like Google, to the small levels, like hey, there's a new startup. How do you keep up to date with all? And what's your recommendation for people staying up to date with the changing atmosphere?
For like based off of like the information that I get from some of our engineers, the LLM models are becoming so good. But they are kind of plateauing now, right? Because again, the corpus of data is generally public information. But there's new open source models and stuff like that coming out. But if you just use plainly like Claude or ChatGPT, you will be able to leverage AI to like most of its capability. Like you don't need to be spinning up like your own GPU or model or stuff like that. Like these tools are extremely powerful. And the people that I know that are like adopting the most AI, they're running like agents and AI applications like 24/7. Like if they need to write like some amount of code or infrastructure, like before they go to sleep, they're firing it off. They wake up, it's done. They go iterate on it, and it's like a continual process. Like even for me, like doing 2 or 3 different things, I have different Claude subscriptions for each of my companies, and I'm giving it a specific task. And then I go check on each agent basically to see basically how it's performing.
On a personal level, have you used agents yet?
Not in like a whole lot of capacity. I mean, I think just I use regular Claude for doing information. Like, I don't think that a lot of people are ready for like this super autonomous form of like agents just yet. There's a lot of like iterative back and forth. But I'm doing a lot more of like research or core work to be able to do so. It's not like finalize into a particular process, if you will. And the reality is that like there's a lot of pre-work that has to be done before you can get into that process. But actually the AI applications are very good at doing that. So like, let's say the scoring mechanism I talked about on our waitlist, like I told Claude to go build a wiki and document this scoring criteria and put it like in our CRM system. And it wrote it all, and it basically like did that, right? So you have the ability to actually document stuff a lot further, and then eventually you can build like an agent or whatever to go do that process. But a lot of like, in general, my suggestion is always to take like an iterative approach rather than trying to build everything kind of at once.
I just to share a small personal experience, I think people know HSAs, health savings accounts, and there's a bunch of like, I don't know, vitamins and supplements you can get that qualify for that. And I was just thinking, I was like, man, over the last half a decade, I'm sure I bought so many vitamins and I did use Claude Cowork. I opened up my Amazon, opened up my wife's Amazon, and I was like, go through these, figure out, go through every purchase we made last 5 years, what would qualify, put it into the spreadsheet, and I went to bed. And I woke up and it was all done, and I was able to get like $5,000 reimbursed from my HSA. And I was like, that would have been taken forever to sit through, research. Is this qualified? Is that qualified? I didn't have to do any of it. You just put it to work and go to sleep. It's crazy. I didn't verify it, but if the IRS comes, I guess I'll just prove my work. Okay, what would your advice be for, because I think we talk a lot about the work, I like that perspective, by the way, for a person in finance or whoever, this is actually a great time for them. If they learn these tools, they can seem like the Superman or Superwoman in their department. I feel bad for the new grads, or the soon-to-be new grads. I know we got some students. And I have a company, I have LaunchGood. I mean, we basically stopped hiring new grads. We stopped hiring junior developers, for example, because I can get that level from AI. So what would your advice be to people who are, just entering the workforce now? Yeah,
it's really hard, like especially in the tech industry. Almost nobody's hiring.
7 years ago was, or whatever, not 7 years, maybe 10 years ago was a great time. Probably.
Yeah, it was a great time, and not many people are hiring college grads now.
Should they just start an AI company?
Yeah, I think. I worked at Amazon for 7 years, so they have this thing called like leadership principles, which is actually like, it's not like a fake thing, it's like they use it every day. And one of the principles is called dealing with ambiguity. So it's like, your ability to take a unsolved or an ambiguous problem and go about like figuring out how to basically like solve it, right? And then another leadership principle is bias for action. And like when we would write performance reviews for like my peers, it would be based off of these leadership principles. Yeah. It wasn't just like a fairy tale type of thing, right? So now, a lot of people, they're just like, a degree is not worth as much as it is like anymore, like just bluntly, I think if you're able to deal with ambiguity and you have like a bias for action, you still have like a very good shot at getting a job or building something, right? So it's like, so for me, like I would take stock of like what things I'm interested in, right? And like I said before, like you don't know this next step to the ladder, that's fine. Like whatever opportunity that you have right now, if it's working at like Shabam and observing like how that they're making coffee and maybe how that they're dealing with inventory and how to manage that, like you'll learn stuff from that or learn about yourself. Like it doesn't matter. Like I would put yourself into situations where you have the opportunity to learn. Doesn't matter like what it is. And then I would just be like AI native and start to use AI for every aspect, to be curious, to learn, or to do whatever it is in my job. And then I would just be like constantly exploring, right? So we live in a world that's going to be changing so fast. Like I can't tell you that like if you learn this skill, maybe except if you become like a doctor or a nurse, you'll be okay. But generally speaking, like you're going to have to learn to adapt because the pace of innovation, regardless of AI or not, is going to be accelerating so fast, right?
On that point, there's a couple of questions how we protect ourselves, either as a Muslim community from being victims of AI, kind of what's happened sadly in Gaza, for example, or as, let's say, Americans of this country, and what role does the country have to put guardrails on AI, but it's like such a fast-changing environment. Do you have perspectives on either of those?
I think it's hard in the US to get like a government entity to eventually like enforce some specific type of regulation. I just don't think it's very likely, as is as common in like Europe with the EU AI Act and stuff. Just the nature of like American businesses and culture is like you build and you learn and you adapt and you fix things and kind of go on. I think some of the aspects here is that there's a lot of open source models. They're just as good as the closed source models, so you can leverage that. The other thing I would say is like there's a lot of Muslim talent in some of these like frontier AI labs, like data centers, so many, right? The problem is like it's just like a very disconnected network. So it's about like bringing these people together, and that's kind of like a hard job in itself. But I think if you're able to do that, you can help kind of empower a lot more Muslims to be able to build stuff, right? And I think that we were kind of talking about this earlier, that like I think it's very important as Muslims as like we don't only build like Muslim products. Like I don't want to build like a Muslim LLM. I want to build an LLM that's useful for like humanity, right? Like that's why we're here. We're supposed to be spreading the message of Islam, right? And that's through like our every day of our lives, through our behavior, through our work, and every other aspect, right? So you're talking about like the payment company or whatever, right? Like same regard. Like we should be offering our services to everyone. Maybe right now we start off servicing only Muslims, like Nia only services Muslims right now, but it like later on it can service like Americans as a whole and help eradicate like riba-based economy, if you will, right? So I think that's very important, is like we have a lot of passion after October 7th to build our own stuff, and not only with building, but even in terms of our dollars. It's just about like we need to remember that we want to build for everyone and invite everybody in as well.
A small shout out and a reminder myself to use them more. We do have one that was a Muslim founded AI other than Replit is Thawra. I don't know if you've used Thawra yet. Anyone use Thawra yet? Thawra, I think it started out of Europe, but some Palestinian Europeans. It's like a chat GPT. It's called Thawra, and it's available in the App Store. And Okay, great. What other questions stood out to you from the list?
That
You know,
I'm. Mhm.
There was some. What about the frameworks for like agentic AI preventing it from like falling for a scam?
I think we're a little bit far away from that. There's now some people that are building even credit cards and other like financial infrastructure for agents to be able to use. So like an agent will get a special credit card that will only be able to be purchased in this way. Honestly, my experience being in the Valley and working at AWS and stuff like that is that there's a lot of focus on infrastructure stuff, has been before AI and will continue to be, but I would really encourage people to look outside of infrastructure projects to build. It's very difficult.
What's an example of outside infrastructure project?
Anything like if I own like an HVAC company and
Yeah.
I'm like repairing ACs, like I think I saw a tweet of someone of like using like Google Earth like to see like which roofs. And I think there are companies actually like this. Which roofs are basically like old, and then they would go and target those companies and send them flyers and call them and stuff like that in order to go basically like change their roof, right? Like the most basic ways of like dealing with like finances or whatever, like if you're having any small businesses, there's so much more opportunity there, because most of these companies, like they're so archaic, and they don't like. I remember there was a tweet of someone that says like, if you're a company and you just pick up the phone, you will already be ahead of so many other people, because most people, like a small HVAC company, they don't have like a receptionist kind of like on the line or whatever and stuff like that, right? So there's so much more that you could do with building like a real business, and I think that that's going to have a lot more resiliency going forward than like an AI like centric or an infrastructure business, but leverage those tools and techniques for your business.
You probably saw the New York Times article of MedV, the quote unquote first $1 billion like one person company. I think what's interesting about that story, and there's a lot of debate, is it legit or whatever, but you know, if you really analyze the business, it's not that much AI. Like he used AI to kind of get the website off the ground, but then he's just using like almost effectively the drop shipping model, right? He has affiliates out there that are going out and making ads. He's then connecting them to the people that sell the GLP-1, and it's just a middleman business.
Yeah.
And he picks up the phone every time. That's what stood out to me, is like actually the operations of the business. He's still using accountants. He's still using lawyers. Sometimes with AI we might overhype it.
I think in general, like sometimes when people are building businesses, and that's kind of one thing that's like the Valley culture has, is just like, just go build it, right? And like get it out there. Versus like sometimes people outside the Valley, they have like this, my thing has to be perfect in order to get out there. When the reality is like it'll often be too late, and now especially in the age of AI, it'll definitely be too late, right?
Too late, yeah.
So it's more about like iteration and starting to do something, getting some customers, getting some interest, and then building on top of there. The people that you work with and that would be willing to use you, even if something is half-baked, is a sure telltale sign that they will be with you if you have like a fully fledged product.
How do you get the word out when, you know, let's say in the next 6 months probably, everyone will be able to turn on an AI marketing team that endlessly spams people, calls people, can make Facebook ads, etc. How do you create a signal when all that noise is your competition?
There's like a famous, like, Paul Graham, he has a famous thing of like do things that don't scale. So I remember there's a company called Keep Trucking. They renamed to Motive, actually a Muslim guy. They have
renamed to?
Motive, M-O-T-I-V-E. They do electronic data driver logs. So the government actually passed some rules that if you're a truck driver, you have to log your hours and stuff like that for safety reasons. That you can't be buying more. So they have like a device that goes on a truck, okay? This guy, he's from the Valley. He was like a VC. He went to truck stops and stood there and talked to drivers. Like that's how you literally do it, right? One of my other friends has like a car dealership AI application, going and visiting car dealerships and talking to people, right? You have to do those things, and you're only gonna do those things, honestly, like if you're interested in actually doing it.
Yeah.
That's like the honest truth, right?
And here's what I'm thinking, and I'm sharing my thoughts. Correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, he can't go to every truck stop in America.
Yeah.
But in the world we live in today, when there's so much information online, you almost can't consume it. You're just going to ask other truckers, like, what do you, I've seen 1,000 things out there. What do you do? What do you use? And if they're saying, hey, we use Motive, then they're going to start using Motive. I mean, that's how I buy my cars or buy my clothes or whatever it is. Like, I just ask my friends in my WhatsApp groups, like, what do you guys recommend?
I'll tell you honestly, like for Nia, we have 3,000 people on our wait list. So the amount of money that we would need for these people is on the order of probably close to $1 billion.
Yeah, you don't need to do any marketing right now.
Yeah, we don't need to do any marketing on the homeowner side,
Yeah.
but we need to figure out the capital side.
Yeah.
So people always ask me, like, how are you raising money for Nia? And there's some people who are like spamming like LinkedIn and hosting like office hour sessions and bringing them to like the houses and trying to get people to like invest, right? And I always tell people that my strategy is very simple. I want to be the worst kept secret. I want to provide excellent customer service to someone, like my investor, give them a reliable investment product, and I know for sure if I do that, they will tell their friends because they genuinely love like Nia as a product, as like an investment, but also being able to help like the community, right? So like focusing on that and then allowing people on their own to share is the best thing that you can ask for. So we don't do any type of marketing. We just maybe have a couple of these measured events sometimes that we do. But other than that, it's all word of mouth, right?
Word of mouth.
So there's like, Taylor Swift, the musician. She has
No.
You don't know her?
Fairy Pie is Muslim. Yeah.
She has a famous thing of 100 fans. So before like she got famous, she used to host like parties with like with her fans, and then till it got to about like 100 fans. And once you reach like that moment of like 100 fans, you have enough scale basically that they will basically like tell their friends, and then it becomes basically like a snowballing effect basically, right? So like you have to find that community that's interested, like going to the truck driver stop or whatever. You get those few people interested in you, and then you will have some natural kind of ripple effect basically with it.
So I want to open back up to questions to the audience. We may not have asked your question yet. You may have got a new question based off the conversation. So let's take some. Yep.
You mentioned about the guardrail, right? And Amazon Bedrock also has a guardrail inside protecting what you talk about. So how do you say different between you and the Amazon coming up with their own?
Yeah, the question is like how are our company different than Amazon Bedrock guardrails? So most of the guardrails that are provided by the frontier models or some of these providers, they're general guardrails. They're like toxic language, prompt injection, stuff like that, which we do have. But the majority of like our customers, they're using very specific or building their own custom guardrails for their specific application. So that's how we mostly differ. And then the other thing is that a lot of people now are like swapping different LLM models. Even providers, like they're using Bedrock, they're using GCP and stuff like that. So now people are kind of installing, we have this thing called Guardrail Server, so it's kind of like a proxy that gets installed in a company's environment that can take in any number of LLMs, any number of applications, and then we provide the guardrailing on top. For us, it's like a lead generation mostly for our other product, which does basically like simulation testing. But yeah, we don't really we hear about some of it, but we're still kind of the largest ecosystem of guardrails.
We'll take
Chris?
2 more questions and then
So for people who have like more so specific in-depth knowledge of the industry, like and don't have technical skills, let's say they find someone who does have that technical skill, what does a proper partnership or structure look like where someone is providing in-depth knowledge or a real-life problem in their field to someone with those technical skills to solve? Because from what I'm understanding, there's tons of people who have AI skills, but what to really apply it to, there's not. But then there are tons of people who have real deep knowledge of industry who have no clue of how to use AI. So being able to create that synergy is very important.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a tough issue where even before AI, there was like, you always had to have like a technical counterpart to your business almost. I think it's honestly less apparent today. Like if you're someone that can leverage Claude, or ChatGPT, or use something like a Replit, like you can build your own website. You don't need necessarily a tech person. Now that might be good enough for like level 1 and you might need to bring on someone else later, but I think it gives you a lot of credibility and a lot of skills to be able to have that conversation with the technical person about like what needs to be done. I honestly don't think that you really need a technical person anymore. You can probably get by without it. Yeah.
Let's say in a scenario where you know that this problem that me as someone in a specific industry is facing, now we're trying to create a SaaS product for that. Let's just say in that scenario that ChatGPT and Claude is not sufficient enough. You need a specific product that can be plug and play in that industry. So like I can think of myself like 10 things off the top. I just don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, I would say you can build it. You can build it on Replit. Like I would challenge you that like if you're gonna be successful in that business, you should know how to build it.
And then what I would say is bring it here to Medina Labs and they'll help you get that last mile. And I'll give a personal example. For LaunchGood, we're trying to build an AI WhatsApp agent. And mashallah, Ali here, who leads AI at Domino's, has actually done this already for Medina Labs. There's a Medina Labs WhatsApp chat, and in it, there's a WhatsApp agent. And so, alhamdulillah, he's helping us figure out how to get that last mile. So this is an amazing resource for the community and much smarter, brilliant technical people here than myself. So leverage them. I think there's one more question we'll take from the back. So I know there's a lot of questions, we can get them all, but we'll have time for individual chats. Go ahead.
Given the MCPs are what you're just basically the concept of APIs and rebuilding that whole idea, what's the future? Is MCP going to take APIs entirely? Is it going to collapse and pay for APIs again? What's it looking like?
And just for the less technical people, like explain what MCP API is.
Yeah, MCP is kind of like an API in itself too that allows you to, like if you're using Claude and you wanted to connect it to like your Salesforce, like a CRM system, you can have something called an MCP server to connect it basically. It's a good question. I mean, in my experience, the MCP servers and even some of the API stuff is pretty slow. Like in the example that I was giving about the underwriting that we do for NIA for applications, like my CRM system that we use has an MCP server, and I tried to use it, but it was extremely slow. Versus if I just downloaded the CSV, like it was able to do it a lot faster.
So Claude was even saying they're getting away a little bit from MCP.
Yeah. So I think they call them the context windows of how much stuff that you can pass into LMs. They're becoming so large now that you can pretty much put in anything that you want in there. And that's honestly a really good way to reduce hallucination as well, is to put things directly in the system prompt rather than relying on connecting to an external server or a database and using like RAG or some of these other tools to extract information. So I think we're getting to the point where most of the stuff can be done in the system prompt. It doesn't really require anything else. And that's what I was saying, like you can use, these tools are so powerful that you don't really need to be technical or need to know any other skills. Like you can just use them plainly, like on your own. Extremely, extremely powerful.
I'm going to end with 5 rapid fire questions, maybe 6. Most overhyped AI trend right now?
Most like chatbots.
Chatbots. Most underrated opportunity?
Small businesses.
One tool you use every day?
Twitter.
Ooh. Grok?
Claude, I use Claude, yeah.
One belief about AI you've changed your mind on?
Definitely that it will be much more adopted via internal use cases rather than external use cases.
Build versus join versus invest. What's the best move in general right now? So should someone build something fresh with AI, like found a company? Should they join an AI company or should they invest in one?
I would build or join,
Build or
not
join.
invest. Yeah.
Last one. Are there any vibe coded apps that you actually use, like you're a customer of?
Not right now, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's give him a big